Welcome to the most shocking story in the world of cars. Richard Rawlings, the king of Fast and Loud and Gas Monkey Garage, just faced a pivotal moment in the courtroom. An unexpected verdict has left him shattered right in front of the judge. What happened? What secret lies behind this case? And will the Gas Monkey Empire stand strong after this bombshell? Join us as we uncover the truth and make sure you don't miss a single detail. Hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next video. Let's dive in. A moment in court that stunned America. An eerie silence filled Courtroom 4A of the Northern District of Texas Federal Courthouse. Tension mounted for hours as Judge Eleanor Simmons flipped through her notes, preparing to deliver the verdict. Richard Rawlings sat motionless, no longer bearing his usual confident smile. His signature slicked-back hair was now disheveled, and his black shirt wrinkled after weeks of courtroom appearances. When the judge finally spoke, her voice shattered the silence, bringing a chilling clarity. Richard Rawlings was found guilty on all charges by the jury, and the court sentenced him to 15 years of federal imprisonment, with no possibility of parole for the first 10 years. When the announcement of financial penalties and restitution demands exceeding $26 million was made, something inside the reality TV star seemed to collapse. His attorney, James Westfield, stated that he heard a strange sound, a mix of gasping breaths and moans, before Rawlings suddenly collapsed forward. The incident happened too quickly, according to courtroom sketch artist Moran Delacqua. One moment, Rawlings was sitting there like a statue, and the next, he simply fell forward onto the table. The horrifying sound of his face slamming into the table and sliding to the floor sent the entire courtroom into chaos. Immediately, Westfield called for medical assistance as federal agents cleared the courtroom. Journalists present described the scene, with Rawlings' ex-wife covering her mouth in shock. Dennis Collins, Rawlings' longtime friend, attempted to approach, but was stopped by security. Emergency medical technicians worked on Rawlings for nearly 7 minutes before he regained consciousness, disoriented and pale. Eventually, he was helped to his feet and escorted out of the courtroom, not handcuffed as expected, but lying on a stretcher with an oxygen mask covering his famous face. Raymond Wilkins, a courthouse security officer with 27 years of experience in federal cases, said, "Whether famous or not, when that sentence is handed down and you realize your life as you know it is over, something just breaks inside some people." This dramatic collapse marked the end of a 3-week trial that had captivated the automotive world and shocked television audiences. For over a decade, viewers had welcomed Rawlings into their homes. But now, they were confronted with the truth about a man they never truly knew. The investigation into Richard Rawlings' business dealings began innocently enough in late 2023 when an IRS audit uncovered irregularities in the finances of Gas Monkey Garage. These issues would continue to surface throughout the investigation, slowly unraveling the empire Rawlings had built, step by step. What started as a routine tax investigation quickly expanded when investigators discovered anomalies that couldn't be explained by simple accounting errors. The first red flags were the typical things we see with entertainment figures, explained Martina Suarez, a former IRS investigator. Although she wasn't directly involved in the case, she followed it professionally. The unusual debt forgiveness, personal and business expenses being mixed together, and the presence of foreign accounts that didn't quite add up raised undeniable suspicions. But then something even more troubling emerged. Prosecutors described it as a sophisticated scheme, one of the most complex VIN, vehicle identification number, fraud operations ever discovered in the automotive industry. According to court documents, Rawlings was accused of systematically altering VIN numbers on dozens of classic cars sold through Gas Monkey Garage and its affiliated businesses over nearly 8 years. Federal prosecutors presented evidence that many high-value cars featured on the Fast and Loud show were concealed with fake VINs and fraudulent documentation, turning ordinary classic cars into rare, highly valuable variants worth much more. The jury was shown comparisons between rare muscle cars and the ones Rawlings was accused of misrepresenting. Automotive experts pointed out subtle differences that only knowledgeable collectors would recognize. In some cases, the cars had been cleverly modified to resemble their original factory versions, then sold to collectors for hundreds of thousands more than their actual value. One particularly controversial piece of evidence came from Rawlings' own TV show. Prosecutors played clips where Rawlings enthusiastically described finding rare unicorn cars that collectors dream of. However, these clips were juxtaposed with testimonies from automotive historians who explained the statistical improbability of discovering so many rare cars in such a short period of time. What made the case even more intriguing were the documents revealed by U.S. Assistant Attorney Caroline Morales in a press conference after the trial. She explained that Rawlings didn't just sell misrepresented cars. He also created elaborate fake histories for them, complete with fraudulent documents that could deceive even the most experienced collectors. The most serious allegations involved Rawlings intentionally selling misrepresented cars across state lines and to international buyers. This triggered federal wire fraud laws, which carry harsher penalties. Prosecutors also presented evidence showing that Rawlings exploited his fame and television platform to lend credibility to the fraudulent cars. He used his media presence as a marketing tool to carry out this elaborate scam. The most damning evidence against Rawlings came from the testimony of 3 former employees of Gas Monkey Garage. They described a hidden area within the shop where the VIN numbers were allegedly altered using specialized equipment. According to their testimony, this area was off-limits during filming, and only Rawlings and a few trusted associates had access. This was the perfect cover-up operation, which prosecutor Daniel Keller emphasized in his closing arguments, arguing that the legitimate car restoration show became the ideal marketing platform for inflating the value of cars through fraudulent means. Rawlings' defense team attempted to portray him as a passionate vintage car enthusiast who may have made mistakes in verifying cars but never intended to deceive anyone. They argued that in the world of classic car appraisal, differing opinions on a car's authenticity are common and should not be considered criminal. Richard Rawlings built his business on a reputation for honesty and fair dealing. Defense attorney James Westfield emphasized that the idea of Rawlings risking everything to carry out such a sophisticated fraud was inconsistent with the person and the business he had proudly built in the public eye. However, the jury was not convinced. After 6 hours of tense deliberation following the 3-week trial, they found him guilty on all 18 charges, including wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and tax evasion. The courtroom was stunned by the speed of the verdict, indicating the overwhelming persuasive power of the evidence. For Rawlings, who had built a multi-million-dollar empire around his larger-than-life persona and automotive expertise, the conviction was not just a legal defeat, but the collapse of the public image he had so carefully crafted. As prosecutors presented their case, a picture emerged of a fraud operation that allegedly ran parallel to the legitimate transactions of Gas Monkey Garage for years. According to court documents, the scheme focused on upgrading ordinary classic cars, turning them into rare, highly valuable versions through a combination of clever modifications and fraudulent paperwork. In the world of car collecting, the provenance of a vehicle is everything. A 1969 Dodge Charger might be worth $75,000 in its standard form, but if transformed into a rare RT version with the legendary 426 Hemi engine, its value could skyrocket to $300,000. With Richard Rawlings' intricate fraud scheme, could he escape this web of lies? Things are slowly unfolding, and the truth could leave everyone stunned. If you found this story intriguing, don't forget to like and share this video so others can discover it too. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on this fraud case. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking story. Rawlings was accused of exploiting these significant value discrepancies by creating rare versions of cars that didn't actually exist. The brilliance of this scheme, if you can call it that, was that it leveraged Rawlings' legitimate expertise, explained automotive fraud investigator Marcus Reed. These weren't crude VIN swaps or obvious fakes. The modifications were sophisticated, carried out by skilled mechanics who knew exactly which details needed to be perfect to pass the scrutiny of even the most experienced experts. According to the evidence presented at trial, the operation followed a predictable pattern. Rawlings or his associates would purchase popular classic cars, often in poor condition, to justify the restoration and modification process. During the restoration, the cars would be subtly altered to match the specifications of rare versions, with appropriate trim components and identifying marks being changed or added. Prosecutors argued that the key to the scheme was the creation of seemingly legitimate documents to support the car's new identity. Expert witnesses testified that Rawlings had access to sophisticated printing equipment capable of replicating documents such as dealer invoices, factory certificates, and build sheets. This was not just a matter of altering a few numbers. Prosecutor Caroline Morales told the jury, "This is manufacturing history. Rawlings essentially sold complex fictional stories supported by physical evidence he created to back up his narrative." The financial impact of this scheme was significant. Financial assessments revealed that the cars that had been upgraded in this way were often sold for 300% to 500% more than their actual value. Over the span of 8 years, Rawlings and his associates created a network of fraud, raking in millions of dollars by inflating the value of classic cars. According to prosecutors, this fraudulent scheme generated over $14 million in profits from approximately 40 cars. What ultimately exposed the operation was Richard Rawlings' growing ambition. As the reputation of Gas Monkey Garage soared with the success of Fast and Loud, Rawlings began targeting cars of increasingly higher value. This attracted closer scrutiny from knowledgeable collectors and inevitably raised suspicions that could not be ignored. The case unraveled when a wealthy European collector purchased a rare 1967 Shelby GT500, reportedly featuring special factory modifications and a racing history, for $1.2 million. When the new owner attempted to insure the car for its full value, the insurance company's verification process uncovered the heartbreaking truth. The car was actually a standard Mustang, cleverly modified and worth only around $180,000. The collector testified via video link during the trial, expressing his shock upon learning the truth. "I trusted Richard Rawlings because of his reputation. I watched his show and believed I was buying a piece of automotive history, but I received a sophisticated counterfeit." The particularly damaging evidence came from Rawlings' emails and phone calls, in which he personally confirmed the authenticity of the car to the buyer. This information was entered into evidence, forming a solid foundation for the wire fraud charges, one of the most heavily penalized offenses. This added to the severity of the case, putting Rawlings at risk of facing even greater consequences. As the case unfolded, prosecutors revealed that the fraudulent operation evolved over time, becoming increasingly sophisticated. The cars initially received relatively simple modifications, but over time, the attention to detail became exceptional. Components were artificially aged to match the expected wear and tear of genuine vehicles, making these cars harder to detect. Prosecutor Daniel Keller stated, "We're not just dealing with a typical fraud case. This is a form of car counterfeiting so sophisticated that it challenges our understanding of authenticity in the world of car collecting." The consequences of this case extended far beyond Rawlings himself. Automotive authentication experts testified that the sophistication of the counterfeit cars raised doubts about the provenance of many high-value cars currently being collected worldwide. Some auction houses announced plans to re-verify the authenticity of any car linked to Rawlings or Gas Monkey Garage. For the car collecting community, this case represented an astonishing breach of trust. The empire Rawlings had built over more than a decade began to crumble following the court's verdict. Discovery Networks immediately issued a statement distancing itself from Rawlings, announcing that all Fast and Loud episodes would be removed from their streaming platform until further review. "We are shocked and deeply disappointed by the jury's verdict," the statement from the network read. "Discovery has always prided itself on the authenticity and integrity of our programs and the experts featured on our shows. We are now reviewing all Fast and Loud episodes to determine whether viewers were exposed to any misinformation." Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, the restaurant chain that Rawlings had expanded into multiple locations, also announced it would rebrand immediately to distance itself from the controversy. Reports from employees indicated that the negative impact of the scandal forced the restaurant chain to make significant changes to protect its reputation. Immediately following the verdict, everything began to change rapidly. Teams began removing Gas Monkey signage and merchandise. The Gas Monkey Garage website and social media accounts went offline within hours of the verdict, replaced by a simple statement from the company's legal team announcing that business operations were suspended until the ongoing legal issues were resolved. The most notable reaction came from the automotive community, which had once regarded Rawlings as an icon in the industry. Previously a frequent guest star, Rawlings immediately canceled all scheduled appearances. Automotive publications, which had often featured his builds, quietly removed any content related to Rawlings from their digital archives. Dennis Collins, Rawlings' longtime friend who had stood by him throughout the trial, released a brief statement expressing shock at the verdict and concern for Rawlings' health, but notably refrained from defending his innocence. Collins said, "This is a difficult time for everyone involved. I'm just trying to process everything we've been through." Financial experts estimate that the combination of mandatory damage restitution and the collapse of business interests could cause Rawlings to lose nearly everything. Court documents reveal that many of his assets, including his personal car collection, real estate, and business interests, are likely to be liquidated to satisfy the financial judgments against him. Financial analyst Trevor Wilson explained, "The fines and restitution totaling $26 million effectively wipe out his net worth. With the legal costs and total loss of income continuing to mount, we are witnessing a complete financial collapse." For the victims of the repossession scheme, those who purchased misrepresented cars at inflated prices, the verdict brought some vindication, but the practical remedy was limited. While the court ordered restitution, the complex process of identifying and verifying all affected vehicles means that many victims could be waiting years for compensation if they ever receive it. Renowned automotive historian Patricia Lawson commented, "Think about the collectors who bought these cars with the belief they were owning true pieces of automotive history, only to find out they were owning sophisticated counterfeits." This case has sparked calls for reform within the car collecting industry. Experts are advocating for stricter authentication standards and greater transparency in the documentation process. Several major auction houses have announced enhanced verification protocols in direct response to the revelations from the trial. For Rawlings, who built his personal brand around an image of straightforward dealing and automotive expertise, the collapse came swiftly. The man who once commanded millions of viewers and whose catchphrases became part of automotive culture now faces the prospect of prison at the age of 50. His empire has been destroyed, and his reputation has been shattered. What makes this case so captivating is its element of self-destruction. Legal analyst Martin Reynolds remarked, "Rawlings had truly achieved everything most people dream of: wealth, fame, and respect in his field. The question everyone is asking is why someone in his position would risk it all for a scheme that, with his level of fame, was almost certain to be uncovered." What a shocking turn of events. Richard Rawlings, the face of Fast and Loud, left us all stunned as he collapsed in court after hearing his sentence. The courtroom was electric with tension, and this moment will undoubtedly go down in history. What does this mean for his legacy, and what's next for Gas Monkey Garage? If you were as shocked as we were, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories. You won't want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.